Hey everyone, this is Olay from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast.
Oh, there we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Sunday. It's been cold, but it's not as cold anymore. And we are live for another week of LYS Student Mentoring with me, Olay, and Festus. Festus, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing very well. Like you said, it's been cold, and so just trying to stay warm, man. Just trying to stay warm. That's all I can say.
No, I hear you. Man. It's definitely it's been different. It's been different getting used to that cold weather. But I think I was looking at the forecast. We should be all right. It's going to be a little bit warmer going into this upcoming week, so I think we'll be good. So let's jump right into it. Let's get to the point. Last week, well, overall, right, we've been talking about vision. We've been talking about what is vision. We've been talking about how to find vision, who to look to get vision. We, talked about getting money for college. Festus did an amazing job talking about how to get money for college with our friend Amaya, which is our I want to call him our third host. Daniel, who's our third host. I'm going to go ahead and say he's our third host. With our third host, Daniel, he's been so great for us. And so then last week, we started talking about the spiritual aspect for kids, right? For you students. And it's really good. We're going to delve into it a little bit more, but I want to make it more, geared towards y'all for sure. And I want to say all that to say this. Don't get it twisted. Everything, if you're a teenager, if you're a middle school, if you're a teenager, everything that you see right now is geared towards putting you in a particular spiritual mindset, whether you notice it or not, right? I see shirts with things that say things like good vibes. I like his vibes. I like her vibes. You talk about, a lot of the stuff that I hear my students, I teach fifth grade, and just a lot of the stuff that I hear my fifth grade students talking about, it just makes me think like, man, they don't even realize that they're being geared in a certain direction. And that's the thing, if you don't, especially at that young age, if you don't have an idea or knowledge about those things, you can easily be pushed or swayed to one way or the other. So I just want to start off by saying, don't get it twisted. You are being swayed. There are people who are putting you or trying to put you in a particular type of position. And I think a lot of that has to do with just us as humans wanting to answer certain questions. The first of which being, where did we come from, right? That's one of those questions where it's so crazy. I don't know who I was talking to, but they were like, if you ask like the average 3-year-old or like 4 or 5-year-old, they're like, where do we come from? I think that person, I can't remember who I was talking to, but they were like, if you ask the average kid, like, where do we come from? They'll say God. And in my mind, I'm like, what does that mean to that 4-year-old, that 5-year-old, when they say God, right? What does that mean when they say that? And so I think about that, and then I think about what I hear my fifth graders saying, which is like, I say things like, they can tell me about different gods from different religions. They can tell me about Buddha, Islam, Judaism, Christianity. They can tell me about all these. It's like they just have access to so much. And so it's interesting to gauge and to listen when they talk about that, because I think it's very important, especially for us that are adults, to listen to these kids, because they're giving you a glimpse into their world, into their view, into what they're seeing. You want to say something?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important that as adults, you deal caringly with people's spiritual well-being. You know what I mean? Because, you see this thing where, I've seen this thing where some people, they feel like, okay, since I'm so right, I'm going to crush you in your wrongness. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, I think it takes a balance of being like, okay, you got an idea. Where'd you get that idea from? Let's explore that. And let's talk about that. And like draw it all the way out fully, because this is part of the problem, is that a lot of kids, let me say, a lot of people don't understand that there's consequences for ideas. Every idea has its own embedded consequence behind it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people take consequence and just mean negative connotation. That's not necessarily true. A consequence is an outcome, whether good or bad. And so the thing is, there's certain ideas, there's certain theories, there's certain, again, spiritual attitudes that by adopting that, and not really processing it through and not really working it out to its logical conclusion, it has an outcome attached to it. And so if you're just latching on to different things without really vetting them and thinking critically about them, you can end up with some outcomes and then you don't know what's going on, right? And this is the concept that people say ignorance is bliss. And the truth is, you just don't know what's hurting you.
Absolutely. So the second thing I wanted to talk about is, this is really good. I was reading the LYS book earlier, and I saw this, and it really made me giggle a little bit. And that is the idea of natural law. So I think we are at a stage right now where our young people, our young adults, our younger ones, the kids, context isn't always there in regards to understanding certain situations. And even understanding like some natural laws. What do I mean by natural laws? I mean laws, things that are like naturally intrinsic, or values that are just automatically understood or known. And so by law, it could be a principle, it could be an idea, it could be a way of life, a custom, a tradition. I say that to say this, and I wrote this little thing down. There's no law that states respect your parents. Yet, not only your parents, but like other parents, people who are the same age as your parents, people who have that role as an adult, a teacher, counselor, whatever have you. But I've noticed this thing where a lot of the kids, they kind of just don't understand that natural law there of respecting your parents. And like you said earlier, there are consequences for every idea, right, that you have. There are consequences for every idea. Same thing with actions. There are consequences for all your actions. So what did you have to say to that? Have you seen anything in regards to like that natural law and kind of where our kids are in relation to that?
Absolutely. And again, this depends. It depends on where you grew up, how you grew up, and things like that. So I'll give this one story. We used to have an orange tree in our backyard, and a kid came over, and at the time, the kid, I think he was in the 4th or 5th grade. And so the kid said, I think I said, I'm gonna get some oranges. And he was like, where are you gonna get some oranges from? I was like, from the orange tree. He was like, oranges don't grow on a tree. And I was like, yeah, they do, and he's like, oranges don't grow on trees. I was like, okay, let's go get the ladder. So we literally went and got a ladder.
Oh, you was doing laddering your success before you even knew it.
Well, now you see where some of the names come from. So we went up in the tree, we pulled up some oranges, we sliced the oranges, made some orange juice. We said, okay, now drink the orange juice. Golden, delicious.
Yeah.
Right. It was a really good orange juice. And the kid was like, wow. And I was like, that's when it hit me that because he grew up in the city, he's only known that oranges are, the shiny thing in a barrel in the store. Because the thing is, the natural order was elusive to him. You see what I'm saying? That's a big failure on the education system.
Yeah.
On the education system, but then also on the parent.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if you don't know that, fruits and vegetables grow, how do you treat the soil? Right? Yeah. If you see what I'm saying? And there's this disconnect where, since we're disconnected from how nature actually is, especially for people who live in the city, we have a different conception. We have different conceptions of time. We have different conceptions of respect. We have different conceptions of how we consume things because of how it's brought to us and delivered. Now, that's just one very small sliver of understanding natural order, right? But then there's bigger things about respect, right? Like you were saying earlier, like, okay, what is respect? What is that?
Yeah.
See, that is an essential concept that unless it's demonstrated and embodied between people, you will never know what respect really is. And that's where, again, you got a lot of these kids who talk about like street cred, or they don't call it street cred anymore. You know what I'm saying? But they'll be like I was listening to some rapper, and he's like, I don't respect nobody, but I respect people. I give them their space so they don't, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, what the hell does that mean?
You do that again? That was very good.
Yeah, he's like, I don't respect nobody, but I respect you. I give them their space. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything, you know? But the thing is, the concept is a true concept, and it has to be embodied between people. And that's a natural law. And if we don't teach, hey, listen, there's a natural order of respect and a general respect that you need to give people. Otherwise, it causes people to be upset. You see what I'm saying? Next thing you know, a kid walks through life, and because they never heard that and never seen it practice, they're like, well, why is everybody upset with me? Or how come people don't want to spend time with me?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, the people who know that law, right? And, you could 48 laws of power and all this other different type of stuff. Yeah. But the people who know and understand those things, like, nah, I don't want to be around you, because you see what I'm saying? And that has real outcomes.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's powerful, actually, because you see that with a lot of young people these days. I have to take a step back sometimes and not get too upset when there is a very simple idea or, something that, is very common. I think one of the biggest things we tell our students is to have common sense. This is the first, I haven't used the term common sense more than I have this year. Like, I've been very big on, look, I just want you to be able to understand what logically you should do in this situation, And so it's been really frustrating having to deal with fifth graders coming up to me saying things like, Mr. Sharonki, what do I do with this piece of paper? And it's crumbled up. Or this marker is no longer working. I just want to, there's a part of me that just wants to be like, my guy, what are you doing? It's not, put it in the trash. But, they have to do the teacher thing. We have to start asking them questions so they can get it logically. It's not working, right? So what do you do with things that don't work anymore? You put them in the trash. I think you should put it in the trash. I think you should put it in the trash. So that's been, by far, this has happened. And then you got to think about COVID. I mean, that had a lot to do with it too. I mean, a lot of these students were raising themselves, and now they get put in a situation where they know a lot about, like, what to do in certain situations, but the full scope idea things, they struggle with those. And so it's been a struggle of telling them to yield, let me teach. And then when you learn, then you can practice the things that we're learning. So.
Absolutely. And that's a lot of people, they're getting in a situation where they walk before they could crawl. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so they can't figure out why they keep bumping their heads. And it's like the ladder has a wide, strong base at the bottom for a reason. Right. Yeah. So getting that support from friends, from teachers, and the thing is, people who are older than you, that's one thing about us, is that we have like a generational gap in which these things aren't shared as much anymore. Yeah. And so that makes it extremely difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, let's go and continue on real quick. So I think this is really big too. And I'll be honest, Festus, a lot of these things that we're going over, I want to go over them again when we have like actual students here, because I think this is very beneficial. Shout out to Festus, the LYS book. If you have not gotten it yet, it's on Amazon. It's on the Laddering Your Success website. It is an amazing, phenomenal book. Every time I look through it, it's just something new that I didn't think about before. And so that's the reason why we're here. And so in regards to that, if I had a student right here and I was talking to them and I asked them this question, that question is, what are the benefits of seeking spiritual truths, right? What are the benefits of seeking spiritual truths? Now, I want to be really honest about this, because for the kids that we are going after, a lot of them have given up when it comes to things like the idea of God. They've already given up the idea of, there's anyone coming to save them, or there's anyone that has anything for them to follow. There are people who are kind of into a little bit of everything, right? So they like a little bit of this. They're kind of like at a grocery store, like an ice cream. I want a little bit of this. I want a little bit of that. I want to mix and match. And that's kind of what we have right now, is a lot of like, I guess almost like this ambiguous type of, spiritual backgrounds and stuff like that. Now, although in many religions, there are some underlying aspects that are common throughout, right? So there are themes, right? There are ideas, there are symbols that you see in all of them. How do we approach talking to students like that? What's the best way for us to engage and discuss those things?
Well, I think the big thing is, people by the questions that they ask, right? And so when a person asks a question, questions generally only have, who, what, when, where, why, how, right? And the thing is, they're trying to fill in a story or a narrative for themselves. And as teachers, by asking the right questions and listening to their questions, that helps to determine their, the kind of where they're at and the answers you could give them. And almost like a Socratic style thing, right? Is, okay, fine, you asked that question, well, I'm gonna ask you a question. And then we're gonna keep going to questions until we logically draw out the full conclusion of where things are. You see what I'm saying? And I know sometimes it's just so much easier to give the person the answer. I think that's why as much as test schools like to say, don't cheat, but then you turn around and what is the word that they use? Where they kind of automatically graduate a student. What is that term? I forgot that term that they use. It's a term where they automatically
promote.
Yeah, promote. Yeah.
Promote?
It's like automatic promotion, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it's like, wait a second. So you told this person, don't cheat, be ethical, this, and then toward the end, you're just going to be like, okay, get out of here. And I'll give you an example, because when I worked in the school district, there was a boy, he was a bit of a troublemaker, right? And so everybody knew him. He'd fight. He was the worst kid in the school, the bad kid, you know what I'm saying? And he was in 4th grade. And I remember we had this dialogue and we were basically, kind of almost bumping heads and throughout the year. And the principal pulled me in. She said, what are you trying to do with this kid? Are you trying to save this kid, or what are you trying to do with him? Because I would pull him out of class and I would have these conversations with him. I talk about life, what's going on, and she was like, we just need to promote him and get him out of here. And the interesting thing was, the kid's aunt died, and she was a very influential person in his life. And because of that, it was a traumatic experience for him. And the thing is, I was one of the only people he told that to. And when we had that conversation for almost 2 weeks, the kid wasn't in trouble, no issues, because he finally had somebody who would listen to him. And that's what a lot of these kids are looking for. But because, you got 30 kids in a classroom, we don't have time for all that. You see what I'm saying? We need you to get this work in so you can pass whatever test, but you're failing in life.
So what's the main priority, right? What's the main priority? Absolutely. Wonderful. This is LYS for students, though. We can't get into that's a teacher. That's LYS. That's after dark.
Very true. That's
LYS late night. And that's a good idea. We might have to do that. I think on top of that, teachers need a pulpit to let out their. Well, that's why we have the LYS happy hours. So there you go. This we'll set up for the LYS happy hours. Oh, we shouldn't be talking about that. This is student, sorry.
But that's what I'm saying. We got everybody covered, though, on the real, though.
We really do. So to answer that question, absolutely. What are the benefits of seeking spiritual truths? Let's talk about the benefits. And Festus, I want you to always try to tread lightly on this, just because, always you see it in the news, and I need to learn to not be so fearful of the news and what the news says, and just, be firm in my faith. But the people are coming at people for saying certain things about, this is how I run this, but at the end of the day, you just got to have that God's got me, when you do that. The benefits of seeking spiritual truth: you avoid major mistakes. And I think coming from us, and I got my guy Clemente here, so we all know avoiding major mistakes, all the things that we the force of have been through and seen. You avoid those major mistakes when you have those things, right? Yeah. You build. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I was just going to add in is a lot of people knock religion for whatever reasons, but that's what the thou shalt nots help do, right? Yeah. Is if you just don't do it, You just don't face the consequence.
Yeah.
Period. Right. And so that's where some of the thou shalt nots come in.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps you build discipline in character. I can definitely attest to that. You connect with fellow believers or practitioners. And I think that has been one of the best things for me, because the key word that comes with that I think about that is accountability. When you see someone who kind of puts it up to your face and says, this is what it is, you have to take that hard look and say, am I or am I not? And I think that's very important. And this is a very good one that I didn't notice that you put in there, was encouragement towards altruism. And that's one of those things where, especially for high schoolers, it happens sooner, but primarily in high school is where they start dealing with a lot of those ethical questions, those questions on morality. That's where a lot of those things happen. And that's when they start to really come together, when it comes with that total idea of altruism, which is it, I don't want to say nirvana, but that movement towards just doing the right thing, doing good. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not doing it justice.
I think it really depends, because again, there's different conceptions based off of, different backgrounds, you know what I mean? And so I think the Buddhist conception is more of a nirvana, or no, actually that's more of a Hindu, I believe. That's a Hindu conception. And so the thing is, it really depends on where a person's at. But I think the thing is, the question of moral, ethical people and leadership, a lot of that people don't understand. It comes from within. It literally comes from within. For a person, and this is where we see so much stuff happening today. They were talking about, I seen this article a while back about how since the pandemic, a lot of people got money, but there was over $20 billion of fraud in California alone, right? So think about this. The government says, here's free money, and you still commit fraud. Like, how bad you gotta be? You see what I'm saying? How messed up do you gotta be when it's like, hey, I'm giving you something. It's kind of like I remember this, on Halloween, there's certain people who they don't want you knocking on their door for candy, so they'll just put the candy bowl outside. It's like that one kid who just comes and puts the whole candy bowl in his bag and still keeps going to other houses.
Yeah.
And and there's something about the scarcity mindset of that child that drives them to do something like that, of greed, of I want more than everybody else. And the thing is, it goes to show some of those natural laws that are supposed to be in effect that obviously they don't know of. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Or they just want to outright disrespect.
Man, that reminded me of, I was watching this episode of this show called Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I'm a pretty big, I don't know what it is about the main guy. I don't know if you've ever heard of the show, but the main guy in the show is just so outspoken in the idea of he really says whatever he feels, for better or for worse. And he's always like the tragic hero, because he'll say what everyone wants to say, but no one has the courage to say. But still, you shouldn't say it. But he doesn't care. He'll say it. And so there was a guy who was doing a funeral for himself, but he has not passed. He said that he wanted to hear all the things that his friends were going to say about him.
Golly, that's crazy.
And so the guy, Larry David, came in and he did not care. He just said whatever. He was like, this is complete ego, like, whatever. So he's walking to the back and he opens up a closet and he sees like 10 6-packs of paper towels, about 100 bottles of hand sanitizer, wipes, masks, like it's just, and it's only one guy in this house. And he's like, you're a COVID hoarder. You're a COVID hoarder. And everyone comes in and they're just like, shame, shame, shame. They're all just like, so that's what I know that's a long story, but that's what that reminded me of.
No, you go, man.
Okay, so let's go to our next point here. The next part is, where can you find spiritual truth if you're looking for that, right? Where can you find spiritual truth? What do you think is good about religion and spiritual truth, and what do you think is bad about religion and spiritual truth. So before we even do that, let's talk about that first question. Where can you find spiritual truth? So let's go back to high school. Put yourself in the foot of a high schooler, right? Where can you go to get spiritual truth if you're looking for that understanding?
Now, for me, I didn't really have much mentorship or kind of connection in high school when I was there. But when I started to do youth ministry, you know, we would try to create as much space for the kids as possible. And one of the things that really stood out to me was one day, it was like a midweek Wednesday. You know, our church was like I would say maybe about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from the schools, you know. And so it's like this midweek Wednesday, and these kids like walked in. I'm like, oh, you know, I'm looking for their parents. Like, hey, how'd you get here? You know, and they were like, I walked. I'm like, from school? And they're like, yeah. You know, I'm like, you know, and this was like 7:00 at night. So it's like, wait a second. So school ends at like 3. What'd you do for like 3 hours? And then you just walked here, you know, and that really impressed me, because for kids to do that, it was like we're offering something of value that they felt like they really needed. Yeah. You know what I mean? Outside of just like, hey, we have fun and we do games and stuff like that, you know. And one thing that one of a pastor mentor taught me was that he said, kids need the same things that adults need, just not delivered in the same way. And so I think that's a powerful truth too. Yeah. In this regard, is like, where can you get truth at? Well, kids need to know how to deal with, you know, love and affection, and, you know, and just all these different concepts that adults deal with. And guess what? If you don't get it when you're a kid, who says you're even going to get it as an adult? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so that's where I just think, again, finding those avenues is really important. And so that's why, you know, now there's podcasts. Now there's, you know, YouTube channels. Before, you really didn't have even those things.
Yeah, we didn't have access to it.
So it's like, you know, so music was a huge component of how we got spiritual answers, you know.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, man. No, very, very true. Very, very true. Absolutely. So let's go over this next part, and this will be the last part that we cover. What do you think is good about religion and spiritual truth? What do you think is good about it? What is good about religion and spiritual truth? Well, we kind of actually talked about that. I'm sorry. We kind of talked about that.
Yeah, we did talk about it, but we can go on it again if you want. It's up to you.
Well, actually, yeah, I'll go over it real quick, and then we can go over bad. We can go over the bad. So what we talked about so far is, we said, avoid major mistakes, build discipline and character, connect with fellow believers or followers, and further encouragement towards altruism. All right. So now let's talk about the bad. What can be the bad? And once again, I want to do everything from the mindset of a young person, of like a teenager. What do you think they're saying is bad about religion and spiritual truth? And actually, do you mind? I want to jump on a big one.
Go, please, go ahead.
The first one that I want to jump on is even the idea that a God exists. I think for that's not bad. That's the idea. To a lot of them, is a lot of students, a lot of young people just have a hard time accepting the fact that even there is a God. Or, you know, you have the question that you're, then why do people always die? Why do people do bad things? You know, this, that, and the other. I think that if you don't have an understanding of those things, that can be kind of a bad situation, because that's an idea that you will then use to push out further actions, if that makes sense.
100%.
So my question is, how would we deal with that? How would we deal with that with a student who feels that way?
That who's kind of has a atheistic viewpoint?
Yeah.
So the thing is, there's a number of questions, right? And so the thing is it goes back to, you know, essential origin questions. Well, how did we get here? Okay, well, you know, and there's theories. Well, Big Bang. Okay, so if you say Big Bang, so that means there was nothing and then there was something, right? Have you ever seen nothing turn into something? See, and this is where, again, it takes a lot of logical gymnastics to say, well,
Mm-hmm.
if you just wait long enough, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like no, that doesn't fly. It doesn't pass the logical test, right? So then you have to say, okay, well, you know, I was talking about this earlier today. You know, well, everything already existed, and it's always existed, and that it's like, okay, if it always existed, there's no beginning, then that also means that there should be no end, right? If it's eternal on one side, it should be eternal all the way through. So what happens when we die? Where does life come from? And so you could get into these metaphysical things about like the law of thermodynamics. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, and therefore energy is just kind of passed through in a loop, right? So then if energy is passed through in a loop, is anything unique? Is anything truly unique? If it's just recycled energy, what makes anything unique? You see what I'm saying? And so when you start asking these questions, these are very tough questions to answer, but the thing is, they're not answered. You see what I'm saying? And so this is where we can say, okay, well, let's explore those people who have answers, right? Because again, you have different conceptions of afterlife. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so are we talking about reincarnation and different types of things like that? And so these are things that people should explore. They really should explore them, just at least so that you have a better cultural understanding of others. Even if you want to accept it or believe it or not, but at least I understand where other people are coming from. You see what I'm saying? And once you do believe a thing, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to acquiesce and agree to other people's things. Just know this is what I believe because this makes the most logical, coherent sense for me, right? And therefore it has my stamp of belief.
I think that is the beauty right there, sir. I think you hit the nail on the head. And I had to write this down as you were talking. I said, the beauty is in presenting this idea or these ideas, right? Because if you have someone at this age, and then and I have to give credit to all the students all over who are actually making that conscious effort to go out and have a true understanding. But I think the beauty is in this, right? I think the beauty is, and before I even go on, good afternoon, our third host, Mr. Daniel Hill. Mr. Hill, if you don't mind, could you please let me know where are we right now? Are we inside or?
Yeah, we inside. What's yeah? Say less. What's up, guys? How y'all doing, man?
We're doing good, man. We doing good.
Process. You were just talking about that, man. Because here's the thing. Our people. It's like, you know how I am. It's me, man. It's all about Jesus. But at the end of the day, I travel everywhere and actually learn about different cultures. Because learning about different cultures give you a better understanding about life, man. You just can't think that this is just the only way right here. Like you have to understand, like, okay, like I'm a Christian over here, but Christians over there are a whole different way, babe. Like it's a whole different aspect of thinking because you know how we say, like people over here say like stuff you're saying is. How can I? Oh yeah, it's hard to be a Christian over here in America, bro. Ain't no persecution in America. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no struggle. I can go outside, holler, but them people over there, man, they going through a different thing. So when you learn about them, their faith is so real that it's just like I don't know. It's crazy, man. They have that true faith. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dude. People trying to harm them and they still have that mindset, bro. It's a whole different aspect.
Well, I think even on that note, you know, it's here so much stuff is subliminal. You see what I'm saying? Like sometimes I'm the kind of person who I think is good if you just outright trying to knock my head off, at least I know, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is now you got all this subliminal stuff that's happening where, again, and this is where I think so many students are confused and they're kind of hurting because they're like, okay, you gave me an answer, but you didn't give me an answer. I want an answer.
Yeah, facts.
And you're like, I can give you an answer, but if I gave you the answer, I'd lose my job because somebody else might disagree with what I gave. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so now it's like all this subliminal. And I think a lot of kids, that again, that's hurting them, because it's like, look, this is mental gymnastics. I need answers for real problems that I'm going through right now. And I'm coming to you because I trust you. But again, you know, whether it's from legalese or whether it's from whatever, that kind of ties people's hands. And I think that's where, again, trying to really encourage that student to think critically and Socratic, and, you know, hey, look, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? I'll give you extra credit if you do this assignment. You know what I'm saying? Here's the assignment. You know, I want you to look at these 3 different topics and study them down, break them down. I'll give you who to research, how to research. Look up what this person said, look up what that person, and have them do that research and make it to a certain degree of academic exercise. You know what I'm saying? Where they're getting that information, because now it's sad, man. You know, I know I'm getting a little off topic, but I'm listening to this stuff about the Joe Rogan podcast, and how an artist that I really, really love, India Ari, is mad at Joe Rogan for having some doctors on and then using the N-word at various times during his show. I've never seen his show where he used the N-word, you know what I'm saying? But then they have all these clips that they bring up, right? And if you look at the clips, it almost sounds like he's describing what somebody else said, but he used the word. And I think that was like, you know, enough is enough. And I'm like, wait a second. Some of these clips look like they're 10 years old. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, weren't you mad at him 10 years ago? And it's like, nah, I'm mad at him because he brought these literal doctors on who gave their medical opinions that does not agree with the bigger scheme of things. And it's like, that doesn't even make any sense to me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But again, it's one of those things where I can only imagine if you're 14 or 13 and you're hearing and you're seeing this, how does that, like the concept of life at that point, how does that make you view life? Like, if I say something they don't agree with, they're gonna cancel me.
Yeah, hey, and that's so crazy, because as a Christian person, cancel culture was stuff that happened 10 years ago is not really Christian.
100%.
Like, I'm a Christian. That's 100%. Not because as a Christian, I focus on what? God always focused on forgiveness. Like, if somebody did something 10 years ago, 10 years ago, bro, I know I was doing dumb stuff definitely 10 years ago. Like 20 years ago, I was in the woods, you know what I'm saying? I was stupid. So like, how you go ahead, bro? What you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say 35 minus 20 minus 10 is 25. I was doing it.
Cause it's just like, man, it doesn't make any sense. So, and people don't get mad about the real stuff. Here's the thing. Like me, okay, you know, like one of the big topics now is the vaccine, right? To me personally, get it, don't get it, it's on you, right? I got it because like the Lord kind of got me and was like, okay, how can you travel and take all these shots? Like I went to Thailand, I didn't ask no questions. You know what I'm saying? I took like 10 shots. And God was like, how can you take 10 shots going to Thailand to have fun, but you can't take one to do this? But here's the thing. People don't understand, like, I look, I know I'm probably getting off topic too, but you know what I'm saying? Since you got, it's like this. When God says something, right, he can say the same thing, but tell you 2 different things. Because he was saying that, like, okay, let's take a story in the Bible. Okay, you have Moses. God told him to stay, right? You know what I'm saying? But God told him, but the whole time what? God watched over him, you know what I'm saying? He actually protect them. But when you get to Mary and Joseph, he told them to leave, but God will still protect them. He can protect you in different ways. So with me, he'd be like, get the shot. But some people, God what? Knows their body, knows their chemical makeup. He'd be like, no, but don't be stupid. You know what I'm saying?
Well, 100%. And this is the thing, you know, since I work in healthcare, every medication has what's called contraindications, right? So what that means is there's an indicator that you should not take this medication. So for example, if you look at, you know, most medications on the bottle, it'll say, don't take this and drink. Don't take this and do this. Don't take this and do that. When it came to the vaccine, everybody threw that out and was just like, everybody needs to take it. And it's like, but this is the crazy part. And I know this because I actually did it. If you go on the manufacturer's website, It says who should not take it. Some of them, that's the thing.
No,
it doesn't take a genius to figure this out.
Exactly, man. And
If
people, go ahead, my bad. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm with you, bro. Because I was just thinking, like, people get angry at people, but it's crazy how it's like nobody will stand up for like regular, like it's so much stuff for like if people. But here's the thing: the main problem is like how we always say, there's no physical point of reference where to go anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody just got opinions. Like nobody's really saying facts. See, you saying facts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're saying facts. But nobody ever says facts. Like at first it was telling people who, like, they say anybody could take it, right? But they wasn't, I don't think people with allergies, but people with allergies wasn't actually supposed to take it at first. So it was just like, hey, what's up, boss man? So it's just crazy. It's crazy, man. You right though, bro.
Yeah, I mean, and this is just simple stuff. Like, go look at what the manufacturer actually says.
Yeah.
You know, go actually talk to your doctor and say, hey, look, this said don't take it if I have a heart condition. So therefore, since I have a heart condition, you think I should take it or not? You know, these are very simple things, but the thing is, we're literally being swayed by public opinion rather than anything that has to do with truth.
Yeah.
I have my headphones in, so he can't hear y'all, but he
good.
he's like, I want to see who you're talking to. But yeah, so it's really sad, and I mean, just getting back on point, when you're a teenager and you're seeing these things and you don't have people at home who can point you in the right direction and give you the truth and things like that, and help you do this, where do you go? And I think when people look at, you know, kind of Gen Zers and, you know, kind of this new generation, and they're like, oh, they're so disrespectful and they're so, you know, they ghost people. I would ghost, like that actually makes sense to me now. You know, at first I was like, yeah, ghosting people is like kind of rude, you know what I'm saying? But I grew up, I'm kind of old school. But when you think about it, it's just like, I have no frame of reference for what this person is saying. I'm not even sure if I trust this person. I'm just going to end the conversation. Done. Ghost. You know what I'm saying? It makes sense.
Say it again, because your boy told me not to ghost people. He was talking about females though, but I'm just.
Well,
I mean,
that's a different conversation.
Okay. And I won't go too far into this, but I think, to me personally, this is just me personally, I don't agree with ghosting, and I wouldn't ghost people. I'm saying I understand that people do, and it makes some sense. But to me, when you ghost people, you don't give them room to grow. And for me, I'm always about giving people room to grow. So that's why I'm like, hey, you know what? Yo, just check this. Bang, bang, bang. Like, even I quit my job recently. At first, I was like, you know what? I'm not even giving them a letter of resignation. I'm just stop showing up. And then I was like, nah, bro, that's not the professional thing to do. And then I was like, you know, what am I going to put in the letter of resignation? I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll put, and I had all this stuff that I've just been built up of over like 2 years. And I was just to a point, I couldn't stand going in there no more. Like I would, you know how you pull up and then I start playing the games on my phone. I'd be like,
I do.
And then it's like 20, 30 minutes later, and you're like, dang, I guess I got to go in. And then the only reason why you go in is so you could get out quicker. You know what I'm saying? That's where I was. Like, look, the longer I sit here, the longer it's gonna take me to get back home. So yeah, man. And but I put some stuff down just to let them know, like, y'all dead, you know, to me, y'all dead wrong in these areas. And but hopefully they grow from that, because the thing is, and this is part of the reason I did quit, was because they weren't listening, you know. And to me, for me personally, I will walk away from people who don't listen. Why? Because if you're not listening, that means the likelihood of change is greatly diminished, right? Because now I just have to wait for like you to have a revelatory moment. Oh, okay. You see what I'm saying? I ain't got time for that. You ain't got time for that. So let's just go live our lives and we'll see how it turns out in the end, you know? But
I think that is a wonderful place to end. And I do think that we will continue on this conversation next week. It's very powerful. It's key. I think it's, you know, the good thing about LYS is I always say, like, man, this chapter is really important. If someone were to ask me what is the most important chapter of LYS, I would say all of them, because There's so much good you can pull out of all of them, and all of these help you in terms of personhood. And that's a word that you hear a lot in the LYS book. You hear that, you hear the word, you hear personhood a lot. And I'm sorry, I don't have the new one, but you know what? I'm an old school kind of guy anyway. I like this is the old. I got the OG edition. You know what? You can put an OG edition on this right here.
The limited run.
But yeah, like I said, I think we'll definitely continue on this. And so yeah, because that's really good. Once again, as always, we say thanks to I'm gonna call you our third host, Daniel Hill. Say thank you to our co-host Daniel Hill, our rah-rah, the guy who's been pushing us and helping us with so much. Love you, appreciate you so much, Daniel. Festus, same. Thank you for setting this up so we can get this out there going. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, there are legitimate reasons for not going to college, but there are no legitimate reasons for not getting an education, all right? Continue to ladder your success. We will see you all next week. Y'all stay blessed now. Take care.
Oh, you're still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS podcast.